handicapper.com. In this video, I'm going to show you some tips and strategies on how to win big betting superfectas, one of my favorite wagers to make at the racetrack in all of horse racing. So we're going to talk about why you should bet superfectas, the cons of betting superfectas, some successful superfecta handicapping tips, and some successful ways of betting the superfecta. So let's talk about the bad stuff first. Let's get the bad out of there, the bad news first. What are some of the cons of betting superfectas? Well, it's one of the hardest bets to hit. You're going to have a very low success rate. And for those that are new to horse racing, or you're curious about even what a superfecta is, a superfecta is in one single horse race, you're trying to pick the first, second, third, and fourth place finisher. Picking the winner of a horse race is hard enough. Trying to pick the first four finishers is extremely hard. So it can be very frustrating, especially when you're losing money on a very consistent basis. It could be psychologically trying for those that wager a lot on superfectas. But the good news to that is you only have to be right, or whenever you're right, usually you're going to be compensated for most, if not all, of those losing wagers up to that point. So you don't have to hit superfectas every single time you go to the track or every week. But the nature of it is very hard to predict the first, second, third, and fourth finisher of a race, especially the third and fourth place finisher. Tracks do their best to try to get competitive fields with horses that are relatively equal class levels. And so it's great for us bettors because the odds are usually pretty good when you have strong competitive fields, potential to make more money from those races. But as a whole, it's very hard to handicap who's going to come in third or fourth. It's a lot easier. You can find horses that's more than likely going to separate themselves in the first spot or the second spot, but that third and fourth place finisher gets pretty even matched. So that's another bad thing about, or difficult thing of betting superfectas. Also, the track takes out 20% or over 20%. So that's the thing that's unique about horse racing. They're not a casino, contrary to what a lot of people think. They don't have an edge. They don't set the odds. We set the odds. The wagering public sets the odds of the horses. It's pari-mutuel. So basically, whatever money we put in, if all of us put money on a certain horse, those odds are going to be low because that's where all the money is. So the tracks doesn't care what the odds are, because they're getting their money anyway, and that money is that, in the case of superfecta, is over 20%. They take a cut of whatever money is wagered. So keep that in mind. And they could be extremely expensive to play, even in this day of age of what's called dime superfectas or 10-cent superfectas. You get in the habit of betting a lot of combinations, even in 10-cent increments. It's going to add up. So you got to be well capitalized, have a large bankroll if you expect to play superfectas on a consistent basis. So you got to watch the cost of all those combinations and all those superfecta tickets. Now, the good news, why should you bet superfectas? Well, by far, it's a chance to easily make 4, 5, or even 6 figures on a single horse racing bet. And the 6 figures usually comes from like Kentucky Derby and the big race days where a lot of money's being wagered. But it's routinely very easy to at least 4 figures in the thousands to profit from one superfecta race. Now, bragging rights, you have the chance to accomplish one of the hardest feats in horse racing. One of the my still on my bucket list is hit the Kentucky Derby Superfecta. Still haven't done that. I keep trying every year, but I still haven't done that. I hit Superfectas every year, usually for a decent profit for most of them. And so with even if it's on a non-big race day, an average Saturday at the track, there's something about knowing that you figured out one horse race. You had a pretty firm grasp on how the first four finishers were going to finish in a horse race. So it makes you feel pretty good, and you can brag to your friends and your buddies that you hit the Superfecta and you got hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars, to show for it. So that's a very, very a good thing, knowing that you have, at least for one race on one day, accomplished a hard feat in horse racing. As I mentioned earlier, you can bet as little as 10-cent increment in as little 10-cent increments. So that opens up the Superfecta to novices and people that don't go to the track a lot, or people that don't have much money to bet and their bankrolls aren't as large as some of the other players out there. So 10-cent increments or 10-cent Superfectas allow those to have a shot at winning or betting a little to win a lot, which is a great thing about Superfecta. So if you don't have much money, it's okay, because they have 10-cent Superfectas out there that you can at least try your luck on. And last but not least, it's just fun. It's fun to know that, as they're leaving the gate or as they're entering the gate, that potentially what's going to happen in a couple of minutes or so or under is going to be, it might change your life. And it's a lot of fun having that, at least a chance of that happening. So they're a lot of fun. And especially if you go to the track with your friends and y'all put money in together, and they can be a lot of fun, but frustrating if you play them too much, wager to make. Now, when should you bet them? Well, by far, one of the biggest things that's going to determine your success as a handicapper and a bettor on horse races is win the bet. As you watch some of my hopefully you watch some of my other videos, it's always brought up that if there's no quicker way to going bust and bankrupt as far as your betting goes than betting every single race. That's a gambler. Most horse races aren't worthy of your money, quite honestly. The odds aren't going to be good. There's not many horses in there, or it's impossible to figure out, so you have no edge. So you shouldn't bet every single race, and you shouldn't bet Superfectas, certainly, every single race, because they cost so much, and you probably have no idea who's going to win, let alone who's going to come in first, second, third, or fourth. But big race days are an ideal time to bet Superfectas, because big race days usually have, that second bullet point there, fields of 8 or more horses. So the more horses we have in a race means the more Superfecta combinations, which means more, typically better odds on those horses. And so in more combinations, which result in bigger payoffs. Along those same lines is big race days typically have people that usually don't go to the track or only come out for those big race days. So you're going to have grandmas. We finally got grandma out of the house, and she likes this horse's name, and she thinks this horse is pretty, and she likes the number of that horse, and she likes another horse that's pretty. She likes gray horses, so she's going to bet that horse. That's her Superfecta combination. The more people like that betting in, which usually happens on big race days, the more money that we have a chance to take advantage of in horse racing. That's the nature of pari-mutuel wagering. And so that means bigger profits for the people that know what they're doing and know how to handicap and know how to bet any wager, but in this case, Superfectas. So big race days usually have a lot more money being wagered on them, a lot more horses, which means a lot more combinations, which means bigger payouts for us Superfecta players. And turf races. Turf races, the reason I include turf races is they usually have more horses on average in their races than dirt races do. They also are very extremely competitive, and the payouts are typically better in turf races. And it's more chaotic. And when I say chaotic, if you watch horse racing, you'll see that the finish of turf races are typically like a cavalry charge to the end. They have a different nature about them than dirt races do. So it's almost anybody's ball game, especially when we're talking the third and fourth finishers. So those big long shots and big priced horses can easily finish in turf races in the third or fourth spot. So that's when to bet your Superfectas. Now, where to bet is just as important. If you're going to spend a lot of money betting Superfectas, and it's just a simple fact that you might, even with 10-cent Superfectas, if you want to have a fighting chance of hitting it, you have to have some decent amount of combinations. Well, it makes no sense on a Wednesday at some small track to play a Superfecta if hardly anybody else is playing a Superfecta. There's not enough money in the pool, and there's not enough horses. If there's only 5 or 6 horses in a race, are the odds pretty likely you're going to hit the Superfecta? Yeah, because all you got to do is pick the first 4 finishers out of 6 horses. So it's easy to, well, I shouldn't say easy. It's never easy, but there's a good chance if you bet enough combinations, you're going to pick those first 4 finishers. But there's simply not enough horses, and there's simply not enough people betting on the Superfecta, and not enough money in the wagering pools to make it a worthy wager. But major tracks on the weekends, and like I said, on big race days, they have plenty of money in the wagering pools and big enough fields where you can pick your spots to have a worthy Superfecta bet. Then also tracks with low takeout. Now, you're hardly ever going to find a track that, when it comes to Superfectas, that have a really low takeout. But as we'll discuss here in a little bit, there's some tracks that have lower Superfecta takeouts than others. You want to try to keep as much as your money as you can when you win any bet. But the astronomical takeout rates of Superfectas make that even more important, to find tracks that have low takeouts. Now, there's always 2 ways to win at horse racing, or a combination of 2 ways. You got to figure out who's going to win, or who's going to come in first, second, third, or fourth in the case of Superfectas. So handicapping, finding those contenders that offer value and how they're going to finish in a race, is one of your first strategies. And some of the factors and the fundamentals of handicapping are extremely important when it comes to Superfectas. To me, pace handicapping is vital. Pace handicapping basically is, you're going to get to a level, if you're not there already, but if you're just learning about horse racing and how to bet on horses, pace handicapping is figuring out who's going to go to the early lead, who's going to be mid-pack, who's going to be a presser or just kind of laying back there a little bit, and then the closers. And you're going to get, trust me, you're going to get, if you handicap enough horse races, you're going to be able to determine, for the most part, the running of the race, the pace of the race. You'll get really good at predicting who's going out to the early lead and who's going to be finishing down the stretch. And all those combinations of horses with their preferred running style make a great sound strategy of predicting superfectas. Because if you have too many early speed horses, that means they probably won't win. They'll wear each other out. And a closer might win or come in second or at least third and fourth. If there's not many speed horses and you got a decent horse that can get out to the early lead, then that gives that horse a really good advantage. So all those little factors of pace handicapping are vital. To me, it's one of the most important fundamentals that's going to determine whether or not you succeed or fail as a superfecta player. Competitive at today's distance, to me, that's very important. That means how well has this horse ran at today's distance? And a lot of people overlook horses that at long odds because they don't think it can compete against a higher class horse or a horse that has better speed figures. Well, that's true, maybe, in the first or second spot, but that doesn't mean that horse who's had a successful, always came in second, third, fourth, or third, pretty consistent at coming in third and fourth at today's distance. I wouldn't throw that horse out. Has a really good, he or she loves running at that distance and is always fairly competitive, so include that horse. So always be on the lookout for those kind of horses. Find horses with current and back class. So you might have a horse that used to be really good and used to win quite a bit or on a regular basis. Now it hadn't won in forever, but it's always still competitive. So you want to look for horses like that to include. And as always, you want to try to beat favorites. That's for sure. Now, so one part is handicapping, finding the winner or the first, second, and third finisher. But and there's going to be more of these races than not in horse racing. There's going to be plenty of races that the favorite looks like the most likely winner. The next, it's going to be a 2-horse race between the two favorites at 8-5 and 2-1. That's going to be your first, more than likely your first and second finisher. Then everybody else is 5-1 or 7-1. And if they're going to come in third and fourth, it's not going to pay anything in like a 6-horse field or 8-horse field. So you that is not a good race to bet. So you got to pick your spots and find good betting strategies that don't include scenarios like I just mentioned. You always want to be on the lookout to bet a little to win a lot. And how you do that is having the combinations that the most of the public don't have or won't have. So that means chucking out favorites, at least for the first and second spot. That means not including the top 3 or 4 most likely winners of a horse race. That means you're going to have to be contrarian and think outside the box and at least have a couple horses that are getting overlooked and the majority of the public aren't going to include. That's how you win. And that's certainly how you win big betting superfectas. So always be thinking of combinations and scenarios where you can bet a little to win a lot. You got to watch boxing too many horses. Boxing basically means if I said the horse numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'm going to box those horses. That means any combination of 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 4, 3, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. All those combinations, I'll win if some of those horses, or if those horses come in any of those orders. The danger of that is you're given equal wagering dollars, equal chance of all those horses. And they might not offer value, all those combinations. So you have to box. I see people boxing 8 horses, 10 horses in a superfecta. And it's like, why even bet? You don't have an opinion of the race. It's obvious that you can't determine who's going to going back to the pace handicapping thing, if you knew who's going to be out to the early lead or who had a chance of coming in first and second and who you felt really strong about coming in third and fourth, you wouldn't need to box 10 horses. So boxing horses are great in certain scenarios, but for the most part, you do not capitalize on your opinion when you box too many horses. And it could be expensive, even in 10-cent increments. But that's what a lot of the wagering public do. And when we show up and have a $30 Superfecta ticket that doesn't have that many combinations, we're going to take all the money from all those that box 10, 12 horses in a field. Along those same lines, become proficient at willing. So this is my preferred way of betting not only superfectas, but exactas and trifectas, any vertical wagers. And that basically means, say if I love the number 5 horse, it's going off at 4-1 or 5-1. I love that horse. I think he's going to win. If he doesn't win, I think it's going to come in second, third, or fourth. I'm going to use that horse and wheel basically means using other horses around it. So if I think the number 5 is going to win, I'll put number 5 at top with horses, for example, 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the second spot, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the third spot, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the fourth spot. But what happens if my horse gets beat? Barely. And it comes in second. Well, I'll use that number 5 in the second spot by itself. And I'll put 1, 2, 3, 4 in the win position and put number 5 in the second position. Put 1, 2, 3, 4 in the third position. 1, 2, 3, 4 in the fourth position. That's willing. I know that's probably hard to understand until you see it, but willing is by far a lot more favorable strategy. It's more cost effective than boxing is, because you have an opinion and you're putting your money where your opinions are. It's just not randomly picking out all these horses and it's anybody's ball game to win. So try to get in the habit of willing horses instead of boxing them. And when you box them, don't box too many horses. And build your ticket around 1 or 2 horses. So the example I just gave with a 5 horse, I was building my ticket around the 5 horse. So consider implementing those strategies when it comes to betting superfectas. Now, if you want to know more, a lot more, actually, when it comes to superfectas, you could check out my book, Superfecta Profits. So you can master one of the hardest bets in horse races. In there, I give you even more tips, more detailed tips, so you can see all these strategies and visually see the willing and how to structure tickets. You'll see what tracks ranked lowest as far as takeouts go. You'll see what tracks have the biggest fields, so you'll know what tracks to bet at. You'll know other factors that I didn't even mention in this presentation, but stuff like jockeys and trainers and horse for course angle. All these things that you want to factor in, because there's just not one secret to winning superfectas. You have to take a combination of a lot of things. So I'll talk about class and speed figures. I'll go in really good detail about pace handicapping, which again is vital to winning superfectas. And then I also talk about turf races and just overall all the fundamentals, even the mindset of what you gotta, how you gotta think and how you gotta prep and how you gotta prepare and how you gotta be resilient and overcome these long losing streaks. All that's in the book Superfecta Profits. It's on Amazon. I'm going to put the link in the description below of this video. And if you want to be a successful superfecta player, at least give yourself a chance at profiting from superfectas, I think you should check that book out because it could save you a lot of money in handicapping superfectas. And it's basically years of me trying to figure out this superfecta bet, and eventually I did. I don't win all the time. I don't know who does, unless you got unfathomable amount of bankroll. But through a lot of trial and error, and a lot of investment, a lot of losing wagers, I think I have a firm grasp on being a pretty consistent, successful superfecta better. But it's a fun. Oh my gosh, it's one of the hardest bets, which gives you more gratification when you actually win it. You can make a lot of money betting superfectas. It's one of those bets that give you a really good chance of coming home with a lot more money in your pocket. But with it being the hardest and one of the most challenging comes the profit. So it's that whole risk versus reward thing, right? If everybody could do it, and if it was that easy, then we wouldn't make that much money at it. But the fact, if you want to be one of the few that can profit from superfectas, then you're going to be compensated for it. It's just that simple. So go to Amazon if you're interested, or go to the link below in the description and check out Superfecta Profits. Start using some of those tips and strategies and that mindset so you can master one of the hardest bets in horse racing. And finally, if you like some of these videos, if you want to get better at handicapping horse races and start winning money, or at the very least stop losing as much money, then I highly recommend and encourage you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, Weekend Handicapper. Also have a website, weekendhandicapper.com. I try to put these videos out there and these tutorials out there to allow people to stop losing money at the track and start making money at the track. And because once you do that, you'll enjoy your time at the track, your time wagering on horses, whether it's at home or at the track, even more, and you'll have a lot more fun. It's a lot of fun when you win money. So I encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And until next time, happy handicapping and smart wagering.